Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today I'm going to do a disassembly and reassembly for repair and maintenance on this double bell M16A4 with M203. Hey guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do consider liking, commenting and subscribing, because those interactions help me get seen by the YouTube algorithms and help the channel grow. If you want to support the channel a little bit more, my socials are linked down below in the link tree, including my Discord. Please do pop round and say hello to me. It's always nice to hear from people, and I'm on there quite a bit. If you want to support the channel at the top, highest level, the join button down below will take you to channel memberships, 99p a month or whatever is appropriate for your country. Custom videos, custom giveaways, your own private chat section in my Discord, and a little bit more saying how the channel is run. So hope you've seen the unboxing. That is linked down below. This is for repair and maintenance, so we're going to sort of get started straight away. So I'm going to remove the 203 first. So we're just going to unclip the barrel loop there, and it's pretty much already most of the way off. So we're just going to gently lift that clip out and then slide it off the whole assembly forward, because on the outer barrel in there we have got like it sort of branches out, tapers out, and we've got like a retaining lug that goes on that. So I'm going to get that out of the way. And we'll put the front end back together. I'll put the other original rail on it. Now it does look like this is not tight enough, so what we're going to do is we're going to undo this screw here. It might be that I can just tighten that down. Let's see if that tightens that down. Let's get going to put that over. Is it that one? Is it a 20? Now it is a hex head screw, but I typically use Torx heads in them, or Allen key heads if you like. I typically use Torx heads in them because they are basically less likely to round out. Now that is tight, and that's still wobbling, so I'm going to actually loosen that off instead, and we'll go the other way. So I'm just going to undo that, put that screw over there. That allows us then to lift this up, because what that screw did was held this retaining clip, which helps to lock it down. So I'm going to put that out of the way. Next thing I want to do is I want to get rid, no, that's going to be a pain. Is it grub screwed? I might just get away with that laziness. They might not be grub screwed. So there's two pins there. If I remove those two pins, this assembly comes forward. Then I can access the delta ring to tighten it down a little bit more, to obviously help secure it a little bit. So I'm just going to go off and tap these out. I've just bumped the two pins out. Both of them had teeth on this right hand side, so they came out that way. There is a grub screw. It's not doing a very good job of retaining anything because I'm actually able to move it. So I'm just wiggling this forward enough that I can get that out. And now I'm going to see, look how loose that is already. I'm just going to get my, you can use adjustable grips for this, but you're going to damage the teeth. If you can get an armorer's wrench, you should use that, which I'm going to grab now. Now you can use something like that, and I would advise putting like a towel around it or something. Ideally what you need is this, an old one, a star one, like a sort of an armorer's wrench, basically an airsoft based one particularly. Now we need to keep that circle at the top, but that just rotates. So I'm just going to put this around here, lock it into those wheels, and already that is super loose. Now if it had gone the other way, I would have been loosening it off and I can take this front end off, but I'm tightening it down. And what I'm ultimately need to make sure of is that there is, when I wiggle this back down, what I've done is the springs underneath have a specific, there's like a set of springs underneath, there we go, look, and there is a gap that needs to sit at the top there, and then the gas block can wiggle back round the gas tube, and then I'm just going to wiggle that back in place, wiggle that back down. I am scratching the front end a little bit, which upsets me immensely. Oopsie. To get to that grub screw, I need to knock the roll pin out that's in there, badly in there, to access the grub screw. For this, I'm going to have to make do. So what I've done then is I've just wiggled them back into place now, and I can see there the springs are nipped at the back there, look, and I just need to move that a little bit. There we go. that goes into it. There is a hole in the front of the receiver there, so that can come back. So that's nice and centralized. It keeps it all in the right sort of lineage that we want. Just tiny bit up. There we go. That now, there's no wobble in it. So what I can do is I can bring the front back in. I've not put the pins in. Come on, Pheas. Wow. That was a bonehead, wasn't it? I'll be back in a minute when I fix. Actually found is helpful is I've just adjusted these adjustable pliers, and then I've just literally snipped those in, and they've gone pretty much back in perfectly. So I can get rid of that. Now I can bring the upper rail in, drop that into its front retaining lug, drop this down into the rail unit there. And what I'm looking for is to drop that little retaining clip I showed you, that little screw clip, so that it goes down and under. I don't know if you can see it from the camera. It goes under the teeth. Now when I screw this in, that now, there's no movement in that whatsoever. And if I bring the lower in, there's the lower, flip the sling loop out, drop that into place, wiggle it in a little bit. It is quite a stiff fit in there. Just getting it into place. There we go. That is now secure. Now we can continue with the rest of it. So we've got a screwed in, that later, screwed in front bolt there that needs, nope, what's that, 10, probably does, was a 15. So we need a Torx 15 for that. So I'm just going to undo that screw. That pin might just needs something. So what I've got is a thin enough one that it doesn't touch the threads in there, it just pushes down. So I'm just going to lift that up, drop that through a little bit more. There we go. I'm going to retain the front pin. It is the D type pin. It's got that flat edge there. I'm going to take this off, make sure that's up, pull the charging handle and just pull, and there it goes. Notice the piston is locked back as well. That's from double shotting on 11.1. So there is our inner barrel that goes on for quite some distance, and our rotary hops. I'll turn the hop fully on for you. Now I seem to need a fair bit of adjustment, and I did say I wasn't overly impressed. Now that's the maximum adjustment, and it was lifting 2.5s all right, a little bit inconsistency, but that's not as good as I've seen in some of the double bells. I'm a little bit disappointed in that. Slide that back in there. In fact, before I do, there is a spring on there, just on the spring there. This is a traditional style charging handle where you've got a spring on the front of a hook that's screwed into the upper receiver. So if it ever goes really slack and floppy, either the spring's broke, the hook has broke, or somebody's stretched the spring out of shape. So get that out of the way, lay it down because it's going to bang about otherwise. Next job, we're going to remove the stock. Now let me just check which type it is. I'm hoping it is not the kind I hoped for, in which case you're going to need a very long screwdriver. So I will go and retrieve my screw. Yeah, I think I need a ridiculous screwdriver, but basically it used to be that this screw went all the way down into the back of the gearbox, and they've changed that, and what you have to do is there's a screw quite far down in there. So I'm just going to lower that down. I can see, I don't know if the camera will have picked up the low light conditions in there. I'm just going to twist that. I think that is loose. So I'm now going to drop the connector in, and I'm going to lift that up and off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep that in position, because there's our screw coming out the end there. And you may be able to see in there, I don't know, I can't tell properly, but I'll get that out of the way for now. So there is our sort of sling loop plate there at the back. We have got a quick change spring system as well, so I'm just going to push that in, quarter turn either direction. Ooh, pinging. There is our downgrade spring, which is small and not very strong. It is a bearing based, which is nice. Spring guide is quite substantial lump of metal as well. So as the spring compresses, it naturally wants to twist. That allows it to twist, which maintains health. I don't know if it affects FPS though at all in any way, shape or form. Next thing we'll do is we'll get rid of the pistol grip then. So we just need 2 Phillips head screw removing. Use a good sized one for it. So undo this. Undo that. Red wire was at the front, on the front terminal there, the little flat spade connector. Black wire was at the back. The red wire has come up the front as well. There is our standard double bell motor. The black wire has entirely come up the back. And then we've got 2 screws, one here and one here that need removing. Phillips heads again, as we usually find in an AR. I'm going to try and keep them in the pistol grip, because it saves hassle of trying to position them later. Now when this screw comes loose, which it has, I'm not going to just rag up, because I'm going to damage the wires. I'm just going to gently pull the wires down and out, twisting them around as I need to. Might even need to get my finger in there like that, just to help encourage it out. Black wire can come out as well. There goes the black. The red wire doesn't want to come out. There we go. It was a little bit tough to get that out then. Probably lost the screws. Just because the white, you can see there, a little bit of rubbing, that's totally fine. That will not be an issue in this scenario. Next thing we're going to do, then I can see it's a double O-ring piston head in there, which is good. I'm going to remove the mag release, so we're going to need, is it an 8? Is it an 8? It is a Torx 8. Wow, that was loose, oddly enough. So I'm just undoing that because it wasn't tight with the Torx 8. Screw, that comes out the way. There's our spring. There's our mag catch. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push this pin out of here. Little thin tool. So I'm just going to push this pin that way out. Might need a bit of a tap. And there's the pins come out. It's got little teeth on it. So I'm just going to pull that out. Put it there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push on the retaining, that little lip there. I'm going to push down and release that. I'm going to come back in a second because my phone's telling me it's running out of storage. Okay, managed to resolve that little drama. So we've got one last pin to take out, this back pin here. Guessing a 15 again. It is a Torx 15 again. Now that's just spinning in there. So sometimes it's worth taking this out sooner because it's often pressure held in by the pistol grip being in and things like that. In this case, I'm just going to grab it with the snips. I'm going to take this off camera and remove it. So I literally just clamped it with the snips, the grips just long enough just to get the initial pressure off. And then there is the retaining pin. At this point now, all that's left is just that little trigger pin, which I'm guessing, wrong way, just going that way. So I'm just going to push that out. It comes out really nice and easy. Oh, did the other way. Just tapping it out with a punch, just knock that a little bit harder. Those teeth are gripping well. There we go. So the teeth that are on there were in this side and really well gripping. So now I should be able to just bring it forward a little bit. There we go, up and out. And there is our gearbox. Incidentally, if this is too loose, the selector, what you can do is it looks like it's glued in, you can punch this out might break it a little bit, but then you can access, there is a little crosshead screw in there. You just tighten it down if it needs it. A little bit loose, but it's not overly concerning. It feels secure despite wobbling a little bit. It's just the tolerances. So now I've got some Phillips head screws that we're going to remove to get into this. In fact, first of all, we're going to remove this little assembly that's got a hook in here, loops round. What I'm going to do first, I'm just going to pull that up. If I can, it might actually be hooked round. It is hooked up, hooked in. It's got like a little hook that goes in like that, and then on, and then under there, which will re-demonstrate when we reassemble. So next I'm going to remove that little screw in there. Might have gone too big. That one. There we go. Now I can remove the screws. So I'm just going to do along the top. These are all the same around the bottom. All the four are the same as each other. So I'm going to cut the two, those all being out in a second. So remove the screws, and to lift the gearbox shell on, I just held down at the front, pulled at the back, and it lifted up and off. Now these bearings here basically are instead of bushings, which are sort of set into the gearbox casing that the gears sit into. With bearings, it helps them spin a little bit faster, potentially increasing rate of fire. Now, if you are going to run high FPS builds, they can fail because they're under a lot of stress and pressure. They will last a while. So metal bushings, if you are going ridiculous FPS and long term, you may have to replace them with bushings that tend to fare better. But it's just something to note that if you are in UK with UK limits, I would have thought they will run for quite a considerable amount of time. The gearbox is actually quite well I'm going to say shimmed. I can't actually see any evidence of shimming. It's quite well greased. It's not coated everywhere, which is quite nice. We've got a very standard trigger block in there. We've got obviously the cut off there, so everything's looking pretty nice. What I'm going to do is check the quality of the compression in here. So lift this up. I'm going to take the tappet and the nozzle off for a start. So we've got the cylinder head and our cylinder, and then we've got our piston, which is a full metal tooth piston, which is nice, and a double O-ring piston head, Bell Performance apparently, and it's vented as well, which is unusual for such a long barrel. So I'm going to put my finger on, and what I'm looking for is instant pressure, that I can't get it in there, and I have got instant pressure. That is outstanding. Now, as we are used to, that is an O-ring based air nozzle. It is a 21mm air nozzle, so you know. And what I'm looking for is a similar sort of thing again. So what I'm going to do is push in again. Again, there's a tiny bit of air leak, which you would expect because you've got a seal on a seal on a seal, but it is absolutely rock solid. So the way this works is, and I get that connected up. Oh no, nearly. There we go. So this is our tappet plate. The tappet plate connects to the air nozzle. The gear set, this black bit particularly, pulls the tappet plate and the air nozzle back. A BB comes up. That all comes forward. Then your piston during this is moving back and then fires forward and compresses the air out the front down the barrel. So obviously if you're getting consistently low FPS, you want to be checking your seal with the hot rubber, then you want to be checking the seal on the nozzle, the seal in the piston as well, to see what kind of quality you've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook that onto the tappet plate, so the little hoop is at the bottom there. That's going to sit on this pin here. There's a little pin, and then we've got a lug hole and a lug hole, and we've got a lug, a pin and a pin there, and that's what that's going to sit in and centralize. So I'm going to put the spring on first, and then I'm going to pull it back. It's quite a stiff spring, and then there we go. That click was the cylinder head locking in place. I'm going to push the spring down on that pin just to stop it pinging about anywhere. The wiring will move, as will the anti-reversal latch, and if you are working on these, you will come to hate them with a passion. The piston has just jumped out of its railing, so I've just rotated that so I can see that it's sat on its railings. The teeth are underneath on the sector gear to keep them out of the way. I'm currently fighting with the anti-reversal latch. Again, still fighting with the anti-reversal latch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the upper, I'm going to roll it on from the front, and I'm looking to roll that in I'm going to push that safety bar back in place. There we go. And then I'm just going to roll it around a little bit. Now I've got to a point where the anti-reversal latch is not quite in. So what I can do is just get a thin screwdriver and just pull. There we go. And it's clicked into place. Now what I'm looking for is make sure that the wires are not crimped anywhere. That must have been in a way because it's just dropped flush. I'm looking for pretty much a flush seal all the way around. Now I shouldn't have to squeeze it hard, and I should have a flush there and flush there. So we are now ready to put the screws back in. So I'll come back in a second once I've put the screws back in. I've got the screws all back in and all across the top. So we're ready now to rebuild the rest of it. So I'm going to bring this little spring back in. So the little spring hooks into this hole here and curls around here. Now it's going to be a pain to keep it pushed down whilst I hook it, and it's going to sit in this groove under here. So I'm just going to hook it around that whilst pulling that down. Oh. Nope. This is gonna get sweary. That is a ridiculously strong spring for such a minor thing. You know what? I'm just going to come back when I'm not feeling like I want to yeet out the window. As always happens, literally just stop the camera and then I've literally just perfectly dropped it in. So I'm just going to keep this retained excessively tightly because I don't want it to ping out before I get this screw in. So I brought the little flat-headed screw back in, drop the small Phillips head in. Make sure you are using appropriate size Phillips heads, because what you don't want to do is round the threads out. I can see that's nice and bouncy, like it should be doing. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to push the spring head in. Now that's a linear spring because there's no change in the pitch, so it can go in either way. We're just going to drop that back in. Again, in, quarter turn, and we're looking for it to basically come flush with the back of the gearbox there. So that is that rebuilt. Just check I've not forgot anything. Doesn't look like it. So we can drop our wire in back into the back there. We can drop our wire in into the front there, and we can manipulate that to get it in. It might be a little bit stiff and just need a little bit of a push and a pressure in, and it's clicked in nicely. What I'm going to do first, before anything else, is I'm going to put this bar in. So I'm going to push it in through the gap. I'm going to flip it over. All I'm looking for is that it connects into there, and it is now clicked in there. And I'm going to put the pin back in as well whilst I'm here. So the teeth went to this side, and I'm going to bring my good old friends the adjustable grips in and just push that back in place. So that now is in there. Next one I'm going to put back in is I'm going to put the trigger pin in, and I'm going to just put that back in and tap that through. That's now flush, and that's helping retain it even more. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the rear body pin. I'm going to slide that in, and I'm just going to tighten it using my finger initially. Until I've got everything else on, and then that should be physically tight so I can tighten it down on its own. I'm going to bring in the mag release next, drop that in place, drop the spring in, bring that in. I believe it was a T8. It was a T8. I'm just going to retain the button down with my thumb whilst the screw in initially. Yes, it is very difficult doing this floating in the air above my workbench, so I do apologise for how clumsy I appear to be. I am very clumsy anyway, and this is just even harder. And I've been at this about 3.5 hours tonight filming. So, but I've got a child-free night, which is always good, and even wife-free as well, which is even nicer. Those are a rarity. Don't tell her I said that. So the red wire then is going to come in the front connector, the front hole there, some sort of, there we go, a little bit of plastic flashing on there, just clean that out. Don't want that getting in the gearbox. So I'm just going to feed the red wire back in. It should go in a little bit nicer than it came out. There it did. Black wire is going to go in at the back. If you slide the pistol grip back down, you should see, if you basically the wires come in, there's like a set of 3 holes across the middle, and that is where these wires should come in through. The 4 outer holes are 4 screws, and typically we put 1 screw there and 1 screw there, which is what we've got. I've left them in place. So I'm just going to tighten those down. That's 1. And that's 2. Now the red wire needs to come around, avoiding the big middle hole, and it needs to come round to the back on this side of it. Goodbye. In fact, no, it doesn't. I am lying. God, Pheas. So the spring, the red wire came up the front, the black wire came up the back, didn't it? Come on. I'm a professional, honestly. So I'm going to separate the wires, leave them out of the way. Oh, that's going to be a pain. Now, if you find that your motor spring keeps coming off, this one is a cone shape, which the tighter end should go down. What you can do is, if you are really talented, I am not. I've got the wires out of the way. You can just go in for the sideways slide like that. If it's in place, it should be nice and springy. It shouldn't be like sort of overly tight on anything. I'm going to put the red terminal on, manipulate the wires. The wires should stay down that front bit there. Same for the black wire, that's going to connect on, and generally speaking the black wire should stay as close to the back as possible. Again, it's still nice and free moving. I'm going to bring in the base plate, which has got one of those nice big thick chunky screws. I'm going to bring in the retention screw and a Phillips head. If anything, when you're screwing it in, it's suddenly very difficult, it's not going in right, or it's the wrong screw. What you need to do is just make sure that you come back a little bit, roll it backwards, and you will get like a click feeling, which says that you've clicked onto the correct threads, and then go forward. If it's still, even after that, I can feel now that that's tightened up, so I can bring in the Torx 15 to tighten that down. There we go, perfect. Obviously, if it's still difficult to get in after that, then you're in the wrong thread, the wrong screws in there, and you need to think about that, obviously, so you don't damage anything. I'm going to drop on the back sling plate loop, then we're going to bring in our stock. I am not going to lose the thing. I'm just going to feed the wiring down, and that's just going to casually just slide on. There are 2 lugs that match with 2 like sort of rail things in there. It will, if it's all in line, it will just go instantly flush without any issue. I'm going to pull the wiring up and out. Now I'm looking, where's my screw? Yeah, the screw's down there. I can see the screw. So I'm just going to lower the long screwdriver down. I'm going to go backwards till I get the threads. I think that was it. Yeah, tightening up. Now that screw, as in any AR, will directly go into the back of this spring guide, so it should stay. She should see that that's straight. That's nice and solid now. All we've got left is we slide in our upper, making sure the hop's in, pick up the charging handle a little bit so it can come over, click it together. I'm going to drop the D-shaped side in from this side. Again, it's probably going to need a little bit of tapping to get flush. Then we'll flip it over I'm going to bring in the screw. And Torx 15. Tighten that down. And there we go. We have disassembled and reassembled for repairs and maintenance. I hope that's been helpful to you. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm glad that's now tight and solid. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.